Who are some of the most corrupt cops out there? Let's find out, starting with number 7, Yessenia Jiminez. Yesenia Jiminez, a former NYPD officer, faced a federal court conviction on trafficking charges stemming from her involvement in a dealing operation that she and her boyfriend, Soto, had. Jimenez, a 4-year veteran of the NYPD, was assigned to patrol city housing developments in the Bronx and was found to have been running an illicit operation in collaboration with Soto. Their operation extended across the U.S.-Mexico border, trafficking a range of contraband that was distributed from their apartment to buyers in New York and Boston. Authorities had initially become suspicious of Jimenez when her boyfriend's phone number surfaced in connection with a suspected dealer from Queens, New York. The unraveling of Jimenez's double life began when she and Soto were apprehended by DEA agents upon returning from a trip to Massachusetts. The duo was meeting another trafficker at the time. Adding to the situation, Jimenez had her NYPD-issued firearm visibly hanging out of her purse and was carrying $25,000 in cash. When law enforcement raided Jimenez's apartment, they discovered not only hundreds of thousands of dollars in contraband money, but also a substantial quantity of illegal substances. Jimenez tried to claim that she was just on the job, but nobody, including a jury, bought it. So she was convicted following a 1-week trial in a Manhattan federal court. In her conviction, Jimenez was found guilty of conspiring to distribute various substances and using a firearm in furtherance of trafficking. She now faces a mandatory 10-year prison sentence for the conspiracy charges with the potential for a life sentence. Number 6. William Dickey. William Dickey and his wife Tara Uciferro faced charges of misdemeanor shoplifting after allegedly leaving a Lowe's home improvement store without paying. Store surveillance footage clearly captured the incident, showing Dickey, an officer with the Providence, Rhode Island Police Department, pushing a cart filled with insulation worth only $66 past the register without any intention of paying for it. His wife Tara was seen doing the same thing with a window air conditioner worth $379. Really? Risking it all just to save less than $500. Acknowledging their alleged crime, Dickie and Uciferro quickly turned themselves into the Warwick Police Department. The fact that Dickie was an officer with the Providence Police Department raised additional concerns. He has since been suspended from his position and is currently the subject of an internal review by his own department. Both individuals were subsequently booked and released with a summons to appear for arraignment in Kent County District Court with charges of misdemeanor shoplifting. It's really weird that he decided to throw his entire career away for less than $500. Maybe his house was just really, really hot, and one more minute of delay was unacceptable. I'd pay for all this, but it's like 85 out, and I just can't take it. Number 5. Mesut Caracas. Mesut Caracas, a former police officer in London, was revealed to be the ringleader of a gang that planned to abduct a bank manager and his spouse in hopes of stealing £100,000. But Scotland Yard, which is the coolest named police force, detectives had other ideas. In conversations recorded by a bug planted in his car, Caracas and his accomplices discussed their intentions in detail. They talked about using sheets to transport the victims and planning about an hour and a half for interrogation. The elaborate plot even included staging a roadwork scene near the victim's residence to serve as a distraction during the kidnapping. When police moved in and arrested Caracas and his gang, they uncovered a trove of incriminating evidence in their homes. Balaclavas, tape, zip ties, ear protection, and a van equipped with fake plates were among the items seized. Caracas and his fellow gang members all faced charges related to the kidnapping plot and its aftermath. Interestingly, there were signs of suspicion surrounding Caracas even before the arrest. He had been suspected of having ties to major criminal groups in London. Doubts were also raised about his conduct when he supposedly injured himself to frame a suspect and later engaged in a fight with some guy outside a pub. Ultimately, Mesut Caracas was sentenced to a prison term of 14 years for his role in the plot. The story is a little old, but still blows us away how corrupt this guy was. He's like a corrupt cop in a movie. It's not like he was just taking taking bribes or something. This dude was out acting like a straight-up villain, just like Alonzo from Training Day. And it's not like it was that much money. Don't get us wrong, 100,000 pounds is still a lot, but splitting it even 50%, it's not like he could ride off into the sunset or something. Number 4. Anthony Maldonado. Anthony Ikeka Maldonado, a former Maui police officer, attempted to bribe a man he basically mugged into not telling on him. The story began with a routine traffic stop. Maldonado, working as a Lahaina patrol officer at the time, pulled over a driver who was alone in the car and struggled with English. During the stop, Maldonado stole around $1,800 from the driver's fanny pack after searching it. The victim later realized the money was missing and reported the theft to the police. As the investigation into the theft unfolded, it came to light that Maldonado, along with 4 others, including fellow police officers, had attempted to bribe the victim to get him to withdraw the complaint. Maldonado's friend approached the victim at his residence and offered him $2,000, which the guy rejected. The victim eventually accepted $1,800, but said it was just to make the guy go away. As if stealing money from the victim during a traffic stop wasn't already dumb enough, attempting to silence the victim through bribery, especially after he had already reported the theft, is even dumber. And then insisting the victim take the bribe after he made it clear he didn't want it is even more dumber. In the aftermath of the investigation and court proceedings, justice was served as Maldonado was sentenced to 2 years in prison. Alongside the prison term, he was placed on 3 years of supervised release and ordered to pay restitution of $1,917.70. Isn't it usually the other way around where people try to bribe police? Maybe someone should give these guys a memo or something. Number 3. John Pisano. Former Lieutenant John Pisano was a 20-year veteran of the NYPD when allegations surfaced about his unauthorized use of overtime to engage in gym sessions instead of performing his duties. Accused of sneaking into the basement gym at one police plaza during work hours, Pisano is said to have exploited the overtime system. Allegedly, Pisano scammed a total of 5 hours and 25 minutes of overtime during 8 exercise sessions, making use of the gym instead of fulfilling his professional responsibilities. On top of his base salary of $121,000, the alleged misuse of overtime pushed his total pay to $176,000, according to information from the Empire Center's See-Through-NY website. Similar patterns were observed in previous years, with his total earnings reaching $177,000 and $173,000. Disciplinary charges filed against Pisano said that he failed to sign in or out of the NYPD gym as required, totaling 92 times. While some incidents occurred during his regular working hours, the lack of proper documentation raised concerns about his commitment to his duties. In addition to this, Pisano was accused of leaving work early on 195 occasions without proper approvals or documentation. Refusing a deal to avoid a departmental trial, Pisano's case highlights the seriousness with which the department views such behavior. If found guilty of the charges, Pisano faces a range of potential consequences, including the loss of 30 vacation days or even forced retirement. But is his misuse of overtime a scam or just a regular thing people do? Realistically, he only took 5.5 hours of overtime to work out, which isn't the same as robbing people or dealing contraband, and certainly wasn't responsible for his jump in annual pay. On the other hand, people in a position of authority are held to a different standard, as they should be. In a job where your integrity very much matters, anything that displays a lack of integrity can have far-reaching consequences. So, even the slightest hint of dishonesty or questionable behavior can erode trust, damaging the reputation not only of the person involved, but the entire organization they represent. Also, did you ever have a boss like that? Or have you done something similar? Give us your take in the comments below. Number 2. Michael Conway. Michael Conway, a former NYPD lieutenant, got himself into some legal trouble for a significant fraud involving Social Security benefits meant for his own children. The accusations revolve around his alleged theft of nearly $140,000 in Social Security benefits over almost a decade. The situation began when Conway qualified for benefits due to a work-related injury he sustained during his time in the NYPD. He allegedly then went on to falsely claim Social Security benefits on behalf behalf of his twin children, who were 8 years old at the time. Shockingly, one of these children is legally blind. Conway's actions extended for nearly a decade, during which he allegedly kept the funds for himself. The fraud finally came to light when Conway's blind son applied for benefits through the Social Security Administration. The teenager discovered that SSA had been providing benefits to both him and his twin for nearly 10 years, and it was revealed that Conway had misappropriated over $138,000. Apparently, Conway's ex-wife and the mother of the twins was also totally unaware of his fraud. She had told the SSA that she had custody of the children and that they had never even lived with Conway. The U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of New York emphasized the gravity of the situation, stating that Conway had committed a fraud on both his family and the government by unlawfully obtaining and keeping funds intended for his children's care. Conway faced charges of wire fraud, which could potentially result in a prison sentence of up to 20 years. Despite the allegations, he was released on a $200,000 bond. It's one thing to find out he was getting benefits from the children intended to help with their care. We don't always know how people spend their money, so just because his family wasn't aware of the aid didn't mean that the money wasn't going to help the kids. But then to find out his kids never even lived with him, you're a great guy, Michael. We're sure you've done your boys proud. If you're loving this video, be sure to stay tuned right here to find out how this DEA agent was really just working for the cartels. Number 1. Caleb Rogers. Caleb Rogers was a former Las Vegas police officer accused of orchestrating a series of daring casino heists and stealing close to $165,000. At the time of the robberies, Roger was an active duty patrol officer entrusted with upholding the law and maintaining public safety. However, he faced accusations of carrying out 3 casino heists over a 4-month period. In the span of those 4 months, Rogers allegedly made off with nearly $165,000 from robberies at hotel casinos, including the Red Rock Resort and Aliante Hotel. His approach was consistent across the heists. Wearing a face mask, dark clothing, and black latex gloves, he presented a weapon, allegedly a police-issued one, and intimidated cashiers into giving him money. Once the cash was handed over, he concealed it beneath a bag tucked inside his jacket. In his 3rd robbery at the Rio in Las Vegas, Rogers was apprehended by security guards after a brief struggle. Armed with his department-issued revolver and wearing body armor, Rogers threatened cashiers and forcibly took about $79,000. As he attempted to leave the premises, a group of security guards intervened, leading to a tense standoff. After his arrest, Rogers' defense attorney said that the government's evidence tying him to 2 of the robberies is weak. He claimed that the FBI and Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department detectives pressured individuals into identifying him as the suspect in the robberies to hastily close the cases. One striking aspect of the case is that Caleb Rogers' own brother, Josiah Rogers, identified him on video footage captured by casino security cameras during the first 2 robberies. Josiah Rogers received immunity from prosecution for his cooperation. Currently, Caleb Rogers remains in custody, awaiting trial for the charges brought against him. Why he'd think it's a good idea to try and rob places that have more cameras than any place else in the world is anyone's guess. Rogers also has a particular way of walking due to a limp, making him even more easily identified. Maybe next time he could just walk in and present his ID before demanding the cash, just to save everyone a little bit of time. Jose Irizarry was a star agent for the DEA, winning awards and garnering frequent praise from his supervisors. That all changed when he was outed as a conspirator with the Colombian cartels, the same cartels he was supposed to be busting. The average salary for a DEA agent is just over $69,000. But with the outrageous sums of money he was collecting from his criminal scheme, Irizarry lived more like a high-ranking cartel boss. While most agents stationed overseas and living off a government salary don't end up buying houses, Irizarry bought a $767,000 home in Cartagena, Colombia, along with homes in South Florida and Puerto Rico. But it wasn't just property. Irizarry bought a BMW, 3 Land Rovers, and a $30,000 Tiffany diamond ring for his wife. He also flew first class to Europe, a journey he made with his Louis Vuitton luggage and a gold Hublot watch. As if all that wasn't enough, Irizarry hosted wild yacht parties with scantily clad women in Cartagena. Even though such parties were against DEA policy, Fellow agents often attended, and they grew to legendary status amongst DEA employees. Most of us know that the job of the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, is to enforce the laws dealing with controlled substances in the United States. They investigate major traffickers, prepare their cases, and seize assets related to illegal dealings. But there's another page in the DEA playbook: undercover operations. Just like regular police officers who go undercover to investigate criminal activity, DEA agents will often pose as dealers and money launderers so the agency can identify real criminals. These undercover investigations involve secret bank accounts and confidential informants. They'll even conduct actual transactions with cartel members. Much of this undercover work revolves around Colombia, the country responsible for most of the party powder smuggled into the U.S. With the support of the Colombian government, the DEA assigns undercover agents to the country to infiltrate the cartels. Jose Irizarry was one of these agents. His peers and supervisors at the DEA described Irizarry as the perfect agent. That's until they discovered his secret double life. In Miami, where he lived before going undercover in Colombia, Irizarry got special permission from the agency to establish a covert operation that sent dirty money from the U.S. to Colombia. The DEA designed the operation to catch individuals suspected of trafficking in the U.S. and Colombia, and it was a resounding success. It led to several key arrests for the DEA and got Irizarry a new promotion: an undercover assignment in the Colombian city of Cartagena. Cartagena, a port city known for its tropical climate and beach resorts, was a much desired position for any DEA special agent. Irizarry was on top of the world. So how did this DEA superstar go from catching criminals to joining them? It all began with a man named Gustavo Yabruti. Yabruti was a Venezuelan American who worked with Irizarry and the DEA as a confidential informant, someone secretly supplying them with information about cartel operations. Irizarry was originally Yabruti's handler, the DEA agent responsible for overseeing him, but he became Yabruti's partner in crime somewhere along the way. The two men opened a bank account which they used to collect money from overseas traffickers looking to get their dirty dollars back into Colombia. Over 6 years, Irizarry and Yabruti used the account to launder $7 million in illegal proceeds. The two sometimes used the funds to buy electronics, textiles, and other goods. Then they'd turn around and sell those goods in Colombian markets for pesos. Finally, they used those pesos to pay the traffickers, and the wheels kept on spinning. But Yabruti and Irizarry needed their own slice of the pie. Besides using the money to repay the traffickers, Irizarry and Yabruti used DEA money to line their pockets. Irizarry even created fake DEA seizure orders or bank letters and then took money out of the account for himself. His trafficking clients, familiar with the high risks of laundering dirty money, were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They couldn't argue against it, so they just had to accept their losses. Using this strategy, Irizarry and Yabruti secured nearly $1 million of dirty and DEA money for their personal use. Irizarry's legendary boat parties didn't last long, as the DEA banned them in 2015. In March of that year, a U.S. Justice Department report revealed that DEA agents had been attending parties with ladies of the night hired by Colombian cartels. The report also revealed that Colombian police officers watched over DEA weapons and property while the agents partied on board. When reports surfaced, the DEA didn't take long to ban the parties. But that didn't stop agents like Irizarry, who enjoyed breaking the rules and cheating the system. But it wasn't just Irizarry, with his yacht parties and expensive homes, who was involved in and benefiting from his criminal scheme. There was also a man named Diego Marin, cartel member connected to Irizarry by way of his second wife, Natalia Gomez, Marin's relative. U.S. and Colombian officials saw Marin as one of the top money laundering suspects in Colombia while Irizarry ran his scam. They believed Marin used cartel money to import shipping containers full of easily exchangeable goods, such as electronics and textiles, which he then sold in Colombian flea markets at a steep discount. They picked Marin up in 1993 for hiding dirty money and home appliances en route to Colombia, but they never charged him. Instead, he continued operating in Colombia, dodging prosecution by acting as an informant to multiple law enforcement agencies in the U.S. As it turned out, having a family connection to someone involved in the cartels was a big help for Irizarry. Irizarry leveraged his position in the DEA and Marin's extensive knowledge of the Colombian underworld to bag most of Marin's rivals. He effectively killed two birds with one stone. On the one hand, Irizarry made room for Marin to thrive. On the other hand, he made himself look good in front of his fellow DEA agents. Besides being married to a woman who was related to a Colombian cartel member, Irizarry showed other red flags that the DEA probably should have noticed. One of these red flags came from a polygraph exam that Irizarry had to complete before being hired. Going through a polygraph test, more commonly known as a lie detector test, is a fairly common procedure for individuals seeking important government jobs, especially ones dealing with security clearances and sensitive topics. Most of the time, the tests don't yield any exciting information, but when Irizarry took his, the results apparently showed signs of deception. It's unclear what questions sparked these signs of deception, or even what signs of deception meant in Irizarry's case, but it's baffling that the DEA got this information and still hired him. Polygraphs are nowhere near foolproof, but some estimate their accuracy in separating lies from truth to be as high as 87%. The next red flag was his shaky financial situation. In 2010, near the start of his career as a DEA agent, Irizarry filed for bankruptcy. He claimed assets of $150,000 but debts of $424,000. Despite being in debt to the tune of nearly $500,000, he was allowed to handle those huge financial transactions involved in his undercover DEA work. It's unclear whether those money problems were actually the reason Irizarry flipped his loyalties, but it's not hard to imagine that they at least played a part. Routinely handling millions of dollars as part of your job must be tempting when you owe almost $500,000. Irizarry's downfall finally came when law enforcement officials noticed a few incidents of suspicious behavior. The first incident occurred when a trafficker in Cali, Colombia, lost an $87,000 wire transfer because either Irizarry or his partner Yabruti stole the money. They thought the trafficker was just another cartel criminal who'd have to accept the loss, but he was actually an informant for the Miami-Dade money laundering strike force. When the informant noticed the thousands of dollars missing, he reported the incident to the Justice Department, leading to Yabruti's arrest. The final nail in the coffin for Irizarry, which came around the same time as the missing wire transfer, was a suspicious phone call he made trying to reverse the seizure of a container of commercial goods. It's not exactly clear why Irizarry wanted to reverse this routine DEA action, but it was probably related to one of his criminal associates. When an IRS agent noticed this call, he reported the incident to the DEA. This led to the agency discovering that Irizarry was messing with paperwork used to pay DEA informants so he could keep the money for himself. After that, it was basically over for the double agent. The feds arrested Irizarry and his cartel-connected wife Natalia Gomez in February 2020 at their home in San Juan, Puerto Rico. They charged the couple in a 19-count federal indictment, and each had to post a $10,000 bond for same-day release. When his case went to trial in September, Irizarry pleaded guilty to all 19 of his charges. He admitted to committing bank fraud and ordering DEA staff to send money intended for undercover operations to bank accounts he and his associates controlled. He also admitted to filing false DEA reports and diverting millions of dollars away from the control of the DEA. His wife also pleaded guilty to her charges: conspiracy to launder monetary instruments, wire fraud, and bank fraud, and was sentenced to 60 months of probation. Irizarry wasn't sentenced as quickly as his wife, despite his cut-and-dry guilty plea. The judge in charge of Irizarry's trial thought there was more to the case. When it came time for Irizarry's sentencing, the judge, Charlene Edwards Honeywell, initially refused to hand down a sentence. She felt that Irizarry was trying to weasel his way out of harsher sentencing by arguing that the money he'd misused had been government funds instead of dirty money. Laundering dirty money is a more serious offense, so this dispute about the exact nature of Irizarry's crime had real consequences for his punishment. However, the judge finally brought Irizarry to justice 5 months later, slapping him with 12 years in federal prison. The man who'd forged a high-profile, award-winning career out of putting criminals behind bars was locked away for committing the same crimes he was supposed to be fighting. Click to watch one of these next videos. Let us know in the comments section, on a sliding scale from 1 to 10, how much you agree with defunding the police, with 1 being completely disagree and a 10 with completely agree.